Have you heard about this? A recent report highlighted on Fox Business is making a really staggering claim about California's finances. It throws out a number so big, it makes you stop and ask, is there a massive multi-billion-dollar problem hiding in plain sight? Let's break down what this one source is alleging.
Okay, let's just put the number right out there. $180 billion. And get this, according to the source, the Manhattan Institute, that's just the low-end estimate for alleged fraud in California. The report actually claims the real number could be as high as $280 billion.
To give you a feel for just how serious these allegations are, check out this direct quote from the report's author. He's claiming that everyone from international fraud rings to local gangs saw a golden opportunity, basically alleging that the state's spending became an open target for anyone and everyone.
So that immediately leads to the big question, right? How on earth could a number that huge even be possible? Well, the report argues it wasn't just a small leak or a simple mistake. They describe it as an open floodgate.
Here's the core of the allegation. The claim is that over the last decade, policies were put in place that systematically, piece by piece, took apart the protections meant to stop fraud. The argument here is that this wasn't an accident, but a series of deliberate choices.
Let's break down how they say this happened. The source points to a three-step process. First, they claimed the basic checks and balances were removed. Second, that when people called for simple audits of these programs, those calls were rejected. And third, they alleged that the penalties for actually committing welfare fraud were lowered.
This slide really gets to the heart of the tension here. The source acknowledges that the stated goal, getting cash to people in need and fast, was a good one. The problem, they argue, is that this focus on speed came at the expense of security, creating what they call an easy target for criminals.
Okay, so these are huge, almost abstract numbers we're talking about. To make it a bit more concrete, the report zooms in on one specific program as a case study, the In-Home Supportive Services Program, also known as IHSS.
And you guessed it, this program has a massive price tag of its own. According to the source, the IHSS program costs over $30 billion a year. So what exactly is it?
So IHSS is a California program that pays around 800,000 caregivers for in-home support. And here's a key detail the report highlights. These caregivers are very often providing these services to their own family members.
This is where the central allegation about this program comes in. The report's author claims that somewhere between 20 and 40% of this program's entire annual budget is just lost to fraud. That is a wild number. This chart here just uses a 30% midpoint to help you visualize that claim.
So you might be asking, why such a high rate of alleged fraud? Well, the source claims the program is basically running on the honor system. In other words, there's very little real oversight or accountability to make sure the care that's being paid for is actually being delivered. Now, this all brings up another really critical question. Where is all this money coming from? And maybe more importantly, why should this matter to taxpayers who live outside of California?
The report really tries to connect the state-level issue to the national stage by zeroing in on where the funds are coming from.
And here is the crucial connection the report makes. It alleges that the majority of this money, including for the IHSS program, is flowing from Washington, D.C. If that's true, it would mean federal tax dollars are at the very heart of these state-run programs. All right, so let's pull all these pieces together. The report we've been walking through presents a series of very serious allegations that, at the end of the day, all point to one fundamental question of accountability.
So just to recap what we've covered from this source material, we've seen that top-line claim of over $180 billion in fraud. We've gone over their argument that fraud protections were taken apart on purpose. We looked at that specific ISSS case study with that huge 20 to 40% alleged fraud rate, and we've highlighted the alleged connection to federal taxpayers.
And that leaves us with this final, and I think really critical question. The allegations in this report, whether you agree with them or not, they force a really tough conversation about a core challenge for any government. How do you balance the noble goal of getting help to people quickly with the absolute need to protect taxpayer funds from fraud? It's a massive dilemma, and there are definitely no easy answers.